Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this video, we are going to be covering the Guardian. This is an awesome character with a passive ability that allows him to plant his feet and gives you additional guard boost, Whirlwind as his main skill, and Wings of Salvation, which is incredible for getting people up. In this guide, we're going to go over how to play Guardian, how to play him really well, and how to basically take a bunch of damage, play the aggressor because that's how the Guardian should be played, and get the enemies and bosses a little bit off of your teammates, kind of take the pressure off them, etc. Let's jump right in with his style. So first things first, his style of play is very specific. You're either going to use shield poke or guard counters. We're going to go through them in this video and talk about the differences in play style. You can of course use both, but for me, I prefer shield poke. Guard counters can be really good too, especially for poise damage. We're going to cover both in this video though. Overall, the Guardian should be played in a very specific way. So for this run, this one specific clip, I didn't end up with any good shield, so I ended up with a parry shield. But typically you're going to want a shield that has the highest guard boost possible, and maybe even a passive that gives you HP upon guard counters or blocking. It's absolutely amazing with the Guardian character. And then you're going to basically shield poke or run your guard counters, which is of course blocking and then following up with a charged attack. It does a decent amount of poise damage and can be really good for the Guardian class. The timing does have to be a little bit precise with that, so shield poking will be easier for a lot of players. But overall, you want to distract the boss. That's the big thing with the Guardian. You're not going to have the DPS that you see with the Revenant, with the Duchess, with even Ironeye. Any of those characters are going to do a lot more damage than, say, the Guardian, but you can take the pressure off of all of your teammates, the other two teammates you have, because of the fact that he takes reduced damage and you're going to be blocking a lot. For this next segment, we're going to jump into continuing how to play as the Guardian character and to make the best of his abilities, blocking, and taking the pressure off your teammates. Status effects are amazing. We're going to go over relics later in this video, so we'll go over the ideas for relics that you're going to want to kind of mix and match, and then of course we'll go over some passives too later in this video that you could use for Guardian, because there's some incredible ones for him. Overall though, I was able to get a Hailbird on this run that had frost buildup. That's amazing for him because it's going to allow your teammates to get increased damage and slow down some bosses. And of course, we have a Hailbird, so we're able to do our normal shield poke and a much better shield with over 81, I think 81 or 83 guard boost, somewhere around there. So we're able to block better too. With the Guardian, we're about to jump in, by the way, to Nameless King here. You're going to want to constantly bring in the pressure from the boss and take on the boss. Like, if you can go to the front and try to take away some of the pressure from your teammates. Now here, this was a little bit more difficult because with the dragon bosses and some of the bigger bosses, it's hard to get their attention sometimes. They tend to pick a character and run towards them. If you can find any relics or passives that attract enemies or bosses to you, they would be excellent for the Guardian class, because that's the whole concept. You're not going to be dishing out a ton of damage all the time, and there we use the ult right there, which gives a buff if you hold it, by the way. If you charge it all the way down, you can get up your teammates, and you can buff them at the end for an additional 10 seconds or so. Make sure you charge that, by the way. It's very easy to miss that. Back to what I was saying before, you're going to consistently poke, try to take the aggro. That's the big thing here, is taking the aggro from the bosses if you can. Heal up when need be. Of course, your teammates are going to have to take a little bit of aggression. You're not going to be in the front all the time because you will get guard broken on occasion. If you do end up with something like the fingerprint shield, I wasn't lucky enough to run into that throughout pretty much like all the runs I did for this video, which was probably 10 or 15 of them with the Guardian class. I did not run across with fingerprint shield for some reason, which was pretty incredible. Maybe it's rare, I don't know, but that would have been awesome. I didn't get any legendary shields, and the highest shield guard boost I ran into was around like, I don't know, 88 or so. It ended up being really good though. The main concept here, though, is if you're not somebody that's going to time with guard counters all the time, you want to consistently poke for damage. Status effects are going to be great for you. I think I mentioned that already. Absolutely incredible if you can get the frost build up. Keeping up the pressure we're going to talk about here as we lead on to take these Crucible Knights. With these super aggressive bosses, you kind of want to get right in front of their face and try to distract them. Now, they may turn to your allies from time to time. Of course, they're going to do that. But if you could stand in front of them, take some of the damage. In this case, I ended up kind of circling around there. When you're guard broken, of course, you can just dodge and then jump right back into it. get your backstabs in, of course, with some of these regular enemies or crucible type enemies. You can get in backstabs for decent damage, but mainly you want to try to stay in front of them as much as possible, poke them, and continue to basically say, hey, you can hit me as much as you want. If the Guardian plants his feet, he has a passive where he can get an even higher guard boost. On top of that, he takes reduced damage and has a massive amount of vigor. His vigor is insanely high, so you should be taking more damage than any of the other characters that you're playing with, maybe aside from the Raider, which is another tank character, the only other tank character in the game. Granted, this may not be everyone's style. Your style may be that you want to put out a ton of DPS. I would still state that you would probably have fun playing the Guardian because he's just a fun character to play as, especially if you're somebody who needs a more forgiving character, which the Guardian definitely is, because of that reduced damage, because of that increased vigor, and because of the fact that this guy is really good with shields. Also, we're going to talk about aggressive play and his ultimate ability here in a second. I do want to mention, too, that he has really good stats for strength and faith. So if you run across any strength faith weapons, he has, I think, a B in strength and a C in faith. That would be great to run with the Guardian as well. So if your strength and faith character, like if you remember that from Elden Ring and you really enjoyed it, you could pick the Guardian class and run it that way too. I still recommend running a shield though. No matter what build you run with the Guardian, you should have a shield. So here's the Marias boss. This is the Bell-Bearing Hunter. This boss can be really frustrating and very tough, so I'm going to try to get in front of him if I can, do a little pokes from behind here, but eventually end up getting in front of him and trying to take some damage away from my teammates because this boss typically does a massive amount of damage. It's actually insane how much he does, and he's one of the harder bosses in Nightreign. It's kind of like the hardest version in Elden Ring they put in here, and he's pretty much that version every time you run into him. Besides, I think on the first night, sometimes with the dog boss, you can get like a dumbed down version of him where he doesn't have a lot of HP. But typically speaking, he's got good HP and he dishes out a ton of damage. We're going to use the ultimate ability here soon in our buff again, of course, which is going to buff our teammates. There you can see this hit may have knocked either one of my teammates. Probably actually would have knocked them. It did knock one of them there. We're going to use the ultimate here. Hold it up. Charge it, get the buff at the end, and there we go. We got our teammate up too. It's excellent for getting teammates up. You're going to use it for that as much as you possibly can. And once again, I don't know why I got grabbed there. I dodged. He kind of has a very light sidestep. That's kind of the only downside I don't like about the Guardian. His dodging ability is not too good. And of course, he's tanky, so his movement's not great. But the trade-off is that you could take additional hits, and that even with the grab attack, which probably does the most damage of his attacks, aside from using the Asha Marias Executioner Sword, you can still tank that hit, which is absolutely awesome. The Guardian is meant for that. It's meant for taking those hits, getting up your teammates, and kind of helping everybody the best you can. Now we're going to talk about guard counters and continuing to take damage and basically being the distraction. So these bosses are fast. Even the bosses that weren't fast in Elden Ring, they kind of got sped up in this. So after I get up here, because I went down quickly, I kind of got stuck in between them there. We're going to go over guard counters, but guard counters could be a little bit difficult with the speed of some of these bosses. One of the reasons why I prefer shield poke over the guard counter type builds is the fact that they move so fast. Now, this boss is going to be stationary here, but eventually when he gets to phase 2, he's going to start moving around like crazy, jumping and doing basically all the hard stuff in his moveset. With Elden Ring Nightreign, though, everything seems to just be faster overall in terms of attacks and everything. Everything's a little bit sped up, so we're going to try to get in some guard counters here. There is one right there. We're going to end up, I believe I switched my weapon here because I had the wrong weapon out. And then we're going to try to get in additional guard counters to try to posture break them. Guard counters do a lot of posture damage. That's the big selling point to running a guard counter type build. And if you're really good with the timing, I'm not great with it, obviously. You can probably see it here. I'm taking a lot of damage. Surviving, though, because we're the Guardian class, he really is overpowered in the sense of survival. Back to the guard counters, though, a lot of posture damage. You need a little bit of precise timing with it. Not as much as a parry. It's not as difficult as parrying, but you do need some decent timing with it. Of course, we need to distract the boss first and get in front of him. There's a guard counter. There's the posture break. You only really need a couple of them, maybe 3 guard counters or so, and you can posture break a lot of these bosses even in a 3-man group, which is actually pretty incredible. And there we get in another guard counter. And if you could see this, we're actually running a Strength and Faith build. We have the Erdtree shield and we have Siluria's tree, if I'm saying that correctly. I think I always butcher that name. But anyways, we're running a Strength and Faith build because he has good stats for that overall. You can get good damage with it. We've got a decent Ash of War if we want to use that. The Erdtree Great Shield is what I meant to say. Doesn't have an amazing Ash of War on it that we're going to use particularly a lot because I'm not really going to be parrying projectiles much. But it does have a good amount of guard boost, which is what we're going for, and it fits the build. And to be honest, it looks really cool with the Guardian too. I'm just going to throw that in there, that running this specific build definitely fits the Guardian in terms of style. Now we're going to talk about the best relics for Guardian. Any HP regen with blocking or guard counters, any stamina regen increase or additional stamina, any increase in vigor or healing, flask heals allies, items work for allies, any increase in skill duration, reflect damage received when ability is active, character skill cooldown reduction, starting armament inflicts poison, rot, frost, or bleed, increase rune acquisition for self and allies. Now we're going to jump into great passives. Improve guard breaking, stamina regen on hits, HP restoration on attacks, successive attacks negate damage. That's a really good one. Hard to get, but really good one. Improve damage at full HP. Guard counters or blocking heals you, improve thrusting or jump attacks, improve charge attacks or critical hits. Now we're going to jump into the final boss from my stream that I ran yesterday. It was kind of sort of a stream. It wasn't live, but I posted it yesterday. The entire run, by the way, is in the description. And we're going to talk a little bit about shield poking here, taking out a fairly tough boss in the Madness boss. If you want to see this entire run that's in the description below, let's jump back in and talk more about the Guardian here. This boss is tough, and the Bloody Hellas isn't probably the perfect weapon for him, but I wanted bleed on my weapon. I ended up with a shield with over 80 guard boost, so I was content with that. Overall, we're going to stand in front of him, take off the pressure, and poke as much as we can. We're going to try to get some bleed build up. I think he gets like a C in Arcane or something. It's nothing terrible. And we're going to basically stand in front of the boss as much as we can. In this case, I'm on the side of him because he's doing a very specific buff. We actually forgot how to stop that from happening. I think we remembered at the end there's something that you have to do in order to break that bubble. But anyways, we do end up getting a victory at the end of this one with constant poking, building up bleed, and blocking when we can. Now, of course, when it comes to elemental damage, unless you have a really good elemental shield in terms of protection, you are going to run into some problems, and the madness buildup in this fight is a lot. I find this fight to be too much in terms of the elemental damage. You can see it kind of got to me there. Yeah, my character went insane. It's because this boss specifically, and the character I'm running who's kind of slow, we're going to be in that elemental damage a lot, and it's a little bit harder to block and take reduced damage from that. But if we stand in front of him, we can block the majority of his physical damage and, of course, play aggressively. Even at the side of him's okay as well, but we want to take some distraction off the rest of our teammates, and we want to build up bleed. We got another bleed proc there as well, and do as much damage as we possibly can do, while also trying to stay alive too, because the Guardian's ultimate is going to come in clutch, and it actually does in this specific clip, because if your teammates go down, you are pretty much the #1 character that could get them up instantly by using your ultimate. I can't tell you the number of times, and I did about 15 runs as Guardian or so, between 10 and 15 probably, somewhere around there, that I came in clutch at the end where my teammates went down, and then I was able to get them up very easily once the ultimate meter is full, and that's why one of the good relics to have would be to reduce that timing, because it gets them up faster than anything else in the game. It's actually incredible how fast the Guardian can get up his teammates, and of course you can buff them after by holding it down. For the Guardian's regular ability, I didn't talk about that much in this video because it's not that great against regular bosses. It's more for mobs. It allows him to control mobs, and then you can kind of guard counter and block afterwards. I used it there, but it's really not the best for bosses as a whole. Doesn't do a ton of damage, does a little bit of damage. It's worth using here and there, but don't get caught up in it because it's not going to give you invincibility frames or anything. You could still take damage when you're using his regular ability. The big thing is using your ultimate and then shield poking or guard countering. Those are the two things that you're going to want to do. In this case, since it was only the third time I think I fought this boss, I didn't want to go too much with the guard counter timing and whatnot, so I went for shield poke. And of course, shield poke in, well, pretty much Elden Ring, probably most Souls games, is really a tried and true method of winning in the end. So we're going to wait for the ultimate here, and you can probably get an idea of what happens at the end of this one. This is going to, of course, come in clutch. Both my teammates ended up going down, playing really well, but this boss can be very tough. A lot of elemental damage, as I mentioned. Let's get up John Nightreign here, and then we're going to make sure we get up past her over there, take down this boss, and then I'll talk about some ending notes for the Guardian. So as you build your character, make sure you build around helping your team first. Don't think about yourself that much. Think about your team if you're playing as the Guardian. If you're the type of person that likes helping people, guess what? This character is probably the single best character in the game to use for that, aside from maybe Raider. So if you want to help people, if you want to make them get better, help them on runs, the Guardian could be an excellent class for you, and I highly recommend him. I had a ton of fun making this video. I've had a ton of fun with Nightreign so far. I want to say thank you, by the way, for the lots of love that I got on the Ironeye videos. I'll leave my latest one in the description below for that too if you're playing as Ironeye. Got a really good advanced guide for him. But overall, the Guardian is an incredibly fun class. I do believe you'll have a great time playing as him. Mix and match some of the relics I suggested, as well as the passives I suggested too. The passives that were on there are absolutely incredible. If you mix and match some of those, you're going to be powerful. Just remember, if you want to build around guard counter or shield poke, either one is absolutely phenomenal as Guardian. You can go with either one and do excellent. Guard counters are amazing. You can mix and match both too. I like shield poke starting out though because it's going to be easier for most players. Don't forget to sub, and I will catch you guys in the next guide.